gonna be socializing.
Yes.
It's socializing families that live in Oklahoma.
Exactly, they're not my family, so it's fine. What's that? Close to my
Backside.
family. Yeah.
Milk. Give it to them.
Potatoes, mashed potatoes.
Oh.
No, there's so much.
Yesterday.
First two you wouldn't have
So, the ABC. Yeah. We recorded. You see anything on stuff? I think that's why you will look for
Alright, good morning guys. We've got our bells turned off today. I don't know if they plan on turning them back on or not, but it is time for us to move forward here. So, we actually have one more B day than A day before your AP exam. I think that's because there was one more A day before spring break. So, we're going to use this opportunity to do a couple of the FRQs that you guys missed out on that my A-Day classes did before. So the first one we're going to do is to finish up the 2022 packet. So that's all the way back to number 95 in your binder. We've worked all of those. I thought we worked them all last time, and you guys reminded me that we had not done FRQ 6. So I'd like to go ahead and do that one. That way I can give you some points for doing all 6 of those. So you need to find that in your bag, please. And then I will be asking you to turn all 6 of those in. Oh yeah, there was 2 assignments I asked for yesterday. If you didn't put those in Google Classroom, 127, 128. They were the most recent 2 practice FRQs we did in class. So no reason you shouldn't have them done, but if you didn't put them in Google Classroom, make sure you come and bring them to me before we get going this morning. So we're going to do 15 minutes on that. Looking at scoring, hopefully learn a few things. It is pretty similar to one we did the other day though, so I'm hoping that you feel a little bit better about this type without me giving you any hints here. Then we'll do one more FRQ today. That's the handout you picked up on your way in, 104A. I numbered that 104A, so that's kind of far back too. But it was similar to 104, same type. So just to be consistent with my A-Day classes, that's how I had them numbered. So that's how I'm asking you to number it. All right, after that, I'm going to give you some time to finish up the circuit from yesterday. It is quite a few questions, but they were all fairly quick questions. But I told you didn't need to worry about that for homework just yet. And then finally, if you finish that and you still got class time, I'm going to ask that you look over your mock exam, multiple choice questions and just look at the ones you missed and try to figure a few of those out. There are 2 more assignments I'll ask you to turn in for homework. That's listed on the agenda though. And like I mentioned yesterday, you need to do the last 4 FRQs on the mock exam. I told you that you didn't have to do those before today, just because that's an hour-long homework assignment and you only have 1 night to do it. I just didn't think was fair. But you do have to have that done by Tuesday. Same as the multiple choice. I cannot give late credit, partial credit on those. We're going to start discussing some of that, and you're missing the point of it if you're doing them after you've heard about them or after you hear how other people scored them or anything like that. So if you've not done that yet, make sure you do that, because we will be scoring those on Tuesday. You don't have to do the scoring part. Just set a timer and put in your best effort. 60 minutes, 4 FRQs. Okay, but back to our class time. If you cannot find your 95, I can get you another one. Just let me know. Otherwise, try FRQ 6 on the back. Everybody ready? It's no calculator. Okay. Go ahead and start. That's the wrong one. That's one we're doing in a second. That's the wrong one. That's what we're doing in a second. 95 was from before spring break. In your binder somewhere. You ready to do it?
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to do it because I missed it. Like, you-
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
It's not just-
Just scan it for a minute. Try to remember what you did. Unless you already graded it.
I didn't grade it.
Okay. You're welcome. I think that link works. If you want to do it, you don't have to. You already did it too. Yeah, if y'all already did it, just on your own, that's obviously nothing wrong with that. So while you wait for 15 minutes, you might pull up the scoring or look at a couple mock exam questions or something. 15 minutes is quite a long time. Do you need to get your copy? This one looks- Should already have the first slide there. There's the last one. Oliver, here you go. You can at least join us with this one, but I don't want you to have to redo them all, so you still need to find yours later. Yep, there's your quiz. No calculator. Weeks ago.
Okay.
You need a copy.
I think I should. But if not, I'll let you know.
Six.
For 128, since I just got it today, could I get this to you by the end of the day, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Just put it in Google Classroom. You might have to remind me next week to go
Okay.
find it, but
Perfect, will do. Thank you.
Are you in the middle of?
I mean, they're doing something, but I can pause them. How long do you need?
Maybe 10 minutes?
10 minutes? Okay, yeah, let's
I
just do it
can-
now.
That or time, you want to? When?
Would you rather wait 3 minutes?
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
I'd definitely wait 3 minutes for
Okay.
you. No, that's fine.
Alright, time is up. Okay, before we score.
as a group, and probably I've seen some of them already, but, okay, you guys, if I can have your attention, I know some of you have probably already been in a classroom with, but, you know, that's just, because you're taking lots of AP exams, so, and then if you have, I haven't been to all of them yet, so there could be, if you haven't seen, and for every class, you may see them again, so. I'm Linda Starr, and I've worked the AP program for a really long time, and what Mr. Geen and I kind of noticed is that, we used to do some stuff in this type of situation, and filling out answer sheets, and I had a chance to talk with people, to get everybody on the same page as we were. And since College Board has you guys starting to sign up in the fall, and you're filling out that information that, ahead of time, we don't have that chance anymore, and we've noticed over the last few years, just some things have been not communicated well, people weren't sure where they were supposed to go, and just different things. And we kind of felt like those things would be something that would be helpful if we had all talked together. But then last year, something had happened that, really kind of made us realize we really do need to be in person. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But, one thing that you guys, on the announcements, I believe, is how you will receive this. But there will be a letter that will be, talking about all of the, you know, what you need to bring, what, you know, the do's and don'ts, and a bunch of different links to, like College Board and different things in this letter, and I think it's provided to you guys through the announcements, okay? But on there will also be a schedule, and make sure that you look at that schedule, because it will have the location of where your exam will be given, as well as, the time you need to arrive. We're in calculus. No, yes.
Yeah, this is calculus.
Sorry. So you guys will be the Monday morning at the town center, and you need to be there by 7:30, ready to go, okay? If you have accommodations that are outside that, you know, standard testing, Mr. Geen will either contact you, or Ms. Kincaid will contact you just to let you know. They will be here at the high school, but it's in different rooms on different days, so it's not as easy to put out in a schedule. So you'll know exactly where yours is. If for some reason you don't hear from him or Ms. Kincaid by middle of next week, you need to make sure and find him and find out that information, okay? It is your exam, so you need to make sure and take the responsibility for it, okay? Because he's got a lot of other things, so make sure you find out. All right, what you need to make sure and bring to the exam are your number 2 pencils with sharpened already, and good erasers. The erasers is really an important part. I see people every year that take their one of those really hard erasers at the end of their pencil and start erasing, and it smudges, or they erase and it almost wears a hole in the answer sheet. So make sure you have a good eraser. Bring 2 pens with black or dark blue ink. I think you can use pens or pencils on the calculus exam, but make sure you bring them. Calculators, bring your calculator. You can have 2 calculators, but you can't use them both at the same time on your desk, but you can have one underneath your chair if you want to bring a backup calculator, okay? And then you can bring your snack and drink, but it needs to be in a clear bag. So during the break, if you want to, you know, have something to eat or drink, then have it in a clear bag with you. All right, those are the things to bring. The things you do not want to bring: do not bring any type of phone, any smartwatches, anything that you can gather information, share information, access the internet, any of those things. Make sure do not bring them in the testing room at all, okay? You want to make sure that any of that type of thing would be as far away from you as possible, okay? Don't bring any books, notes, colored pencils, mechanical pencils, highlighters, scratch paper, watches that beep, or any earplugs, something like that. Anything else other than your pens, pencils, and your snack and drink need to be put in a different area, not even in that room. So we have at the town center, we have a holding room that you'll put everything in. If you have a backpack or a purse or anything else, you can put that in that room. You won't get into the room until, or be able to get it until you've been dismissed from the exam. All right, day of the exam. At the town center, you'll park in the parking garage. It's free. All you've got to do is pull in. You don't need to grab a ticket. You don't need to do anything. You just need to pull on in and find a parking spot. If for some reason, because we can't control that, who else parks there, if for some reason there was not a parking spot, do not park at the, around the town center or in the, around the square there, okay? All that is like 2-hour parking, and, you're gonna be in there longer than 2 hours, okay? And you won't have a chance to change it, and you will get a ticket. So think about a plan B, and I know a lot of people have talked, not a lot, but those that have run into that situation in the past have said they parked at the library and just walked the couple blocks to the town center, okay? Make sure you know exactly where you're going before the day of the exam. The one thing that we absolutely is like no way give any makeups for is if you don't know where you're going and you're late for the exam, you won't be able to retake you won't be able to have a late exam, okay? Make sure you know where you're going and make sure where your plan B is before the day of the exam, okay?
Do we provide transportation?
There will
from
be
the
a
high school?
link, I'm glad you said that,
Okay.
there should be a link in whatever this letter that Mr. Gein's gonna put out, so there should be
Okay.
one there. Okay, so when you come into the town center, there's gonna be a seating chart as well as a roster that has your name and your seat there. When you come into the room, there's going to be 4 different sections. I know probably a lot of you probably already tested there, but the far left is section A, and then it's B, C, and the far right is section D. They're numbered, they're zigzagged all the way back in each section, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it hops back, and then 5, 6, 7, and it zigzags all the way back to the back of the room. Okay, so you're going into the room. Make sure when you go into the room, you drop your snack and drink at the back wall. You just put it along there, and you'll get it at the break time. If for some reason, let's say you were in a hurry and you forgot to get your snack out of your bag, and you put it in the holding room, the only way that you want to and can, well, you probably could if the door was open and nobody was standing there. Do not go in there without a proctor, okay? This is for your protection. You always want to make sure during testing time that if you're in an area where there's things that you know you shouldn't have, you want to make sure that somebody else is there with you to watch to make sure it's done right, okay? This is kind of where the tipping point kind of thing happened last year, which was, there were a couple students, and one of them went and during that break had accessed their phone, and the other person had looked at some notes. And, as brief as it was, both of them did pertain to the exam that they were taking. And so, after that, we, when those type of things happen, we have to report to College Board, and then it's up to College Board to decide what is done with that information. And in both of these situations, the exam was not scored, okay? So, with that being said, that's kind of what we decided. We just need to make sure you guys understand what could happen in a situation like that. In this situation, it only did affect these 2 students, because we knew that the phones or whatever was in the holding room and that there was no one else involved in it. So that was pretty easy. But let's just kind of change that scenario just a little bit and say somebody came in innocently and last minute, whatever happened, they had their phone off, but they thought, oh, I'm in the room, I'm just not gonna go back in there, I'll just slip it in my snack bag, okay? At the break, before I say that, you guys are also, when I read the directions in the script, it is said that in some way, that you guys have the same right and responsibility to report things as I do and as Mr. Dean does. So, with that being said, in this scenario, they go and they have to grab their phone out because their snack is below. Somebody walks by, sees a phone in somebody's hand. They don't really do much with it that time, but then, they go to bed and they start thinking about that, and they're thinking, that's not really right. This person had a phone, who knows what was going with it, all that kind of stuff. So they decide to call College Board and say that somebody in the room that they were testing in had a cell phone, a student. Doesn't matter about the proctors, but a student, okay? So in that situation, they call, then College Board calls us back. And so when we're talking to College Board, I have no idea what happened because I didn't know about it. And this happens every year, you guys. It's in the news. I was turned on the national news last year during AP testing, and there was a very similar, not a situation like this, but a situation that something happened in a big testing room, and the entire room, they cancel the scores, they look into what's going on, and then those that were not involved are able to retake the exam, and the ones that were involved with it are not able to retake the exam. But when the College Board gives those retake things, they're usually in July. And I know seniors, a lot of them will be gone. But I don't mean to kind of make this all drama filled or anything, but it happens every year, and I just want you guys to realize how important it is that you listen to everything that the script is saying and that we say. And since I have nothing writing on this exam, but you guys have a lot writing on this exam, you guys have been prepared and for the exam to be given here in a couple of weeks. You guys have a lot writing on it. And so what I'm asking too is that if you guys know of something going on in the testing room that maybe somebody was daydreaming when I was reading this and they didn't hear it, okay? You need to probably say something to them, and if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I will. Come tell me, and I'll be happy. I will never tell them who said something, but my goal and the reason I'm there is to make sure you guys have the best possibility to do your best on that exam. And we do not want anything going on in there that shouldn't be, okay? And, the other thing, one more thing that I want to make sure and mention is when we're in the testing room, when you go to your seat, you'll find an answer sheet with a sheet of labels. Make sure that it's your sheet of labels, that it has your name at the top as well as your exam schedule, because you'll know that is yours. But the thing that I really want to make sure you guys also do is follow along with the directions as I read them. I know if you can look at an answer sheet and see that there's a place for your name, and this could be, there's somebody taking 8 exams this year. This could be your 8th exam. You still need to wait and follow along with me as I go through the directions. Things get missed and skipped when we get real comfortable. And also what happens is that we end up waiting on people, because when I ask people to do one step, and I say, okay, look up when you've finished, and most people look up and then we're waiting on a couple people and waiting on them and waiting on them, waiting on them, and then they decide to finish and look up, and so then I go to the next step. Well, everybody else is working except the people that we were waiting on, because they have already decided they wanted to work ahead. So we'll move much faster through all of it if we work together on that. And timing is a big deal on the morning exams because we have afternoon exams too. So anyway, does anybody have any questions? No? Thanks for those that have listened before to listen again so intently. And do you have anything that you want? Okay. All right. Just listen, be on time, and yeah, do what it says. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I guess I would add that I think Geen takes a few calculators for people who forget them. So if you do forget yours, I wouldn't panic. But
Yeah,
It will be a very limited number, so don't count on it. You should still bring your own calculator.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Let me shut your door.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Can I go catch up with her? I have like a personal question.
Yeah. Go catch her before she runs off. Okay, let's look at the scoring of this now. So, again, I was trying not to give you any hint, but we did one like this, I think, 2 classes ago, where there's a particle P and a particle Q, and part of what is, if y'all need a different colored pencil for corrections and stuff, then come help yourself. But keeping up with P and Q is one of the challenges here. But it looks like part A had just 1 point. I wanted you to find the velocity of P. And so to find the velocity of P, you needed to take the derivative of position of P. So 1 point if you came up with the answer, which was 4 times e to the negative t, or 4 over e to the positive t, same thing. So 1 point basically to take a derivative and to know to take a derivative. Any questions about part A? Okay. All right, part B has 3 points. Wants the acceleration of Q. So acceleration of Q comes from the derivative of the velocity of Q. So 1 point if you got that correct. -2 over t cubed. They also asked, figure out the times when the speed is decreasing. So we know for something to be speeding up, his velocity and acceleration have to have the same sign at the same time. So for them to be decreasing in speed, you needed to figure out when the acceleration and velocity of Q were different signs. So they gave you 1 point if you look like you considered both of those things. If you considered the acceleration of Q and the velocity of Q. So even if you just considered them and you have work down showing you considered them, you get the 2nd point. And for the last part of B, you've got to get the answer and the justification. The answer is that it was decreasing the entire time. And the way that you knew that is that velocity and acceleration have opposite signs. So you got to have both. Decreasing the entire time and the y. Okay, so before I keep going here, I don't remember the average of this one. What does it say in the top right? Oh, it didn't say?
No, I didn't say.
Okay, hold on. I got a separate place I keep this stuff. This was 2022-6. 22. This was 3.04. Almost pi. Okay, so what I was going to say about the average here is I knew the average is going to be around 3 or 4 because that's what they usually are. But the first question was just a derivative and knowing to take the derivative. The first point of B was a derivative and knowing to take the derivative, which I don't know how y'all wouldn't know those at this point in the year. And then the third point, as long as you knew what to consider, you got it. So you could almost be at average just from the first 3 points. All of those, I feel like, are easier than a lot of the other FRQ stuff you have to do. Okay, is there anything about B? Okay, then C is a little more complicated, but they gave you 1 point if you came up with the integral. So that would be this. You integrated from 1 to t of 1 over s squared ds, or anything equivalent to that. So instead of 1 over s squared, it might be s to the -2. Now, I would say if you missed part of that, it's probably because you didn't put a t here. You probably wanted to put the n number, but the n number would tell you how it's changing to that time, and they wanted you to keep it generic time t. So 1 to t, integrating 1 to t is how you're keeping up with the change if you don't know the specific time. Yeah.
I thought you were looking at the integral and use the starting position, just dissolve and C, does that still get rid of those 2 points?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Okay, you get a second point if you even use the initial condition. So again, integration only tells you how something changes. If you care about where something's at, you also have to know where he started. So you actually had to plug that in, which I don't have the question in front of me, but I'm guessing that was in the direction somewhere. At time 1, it was at 2. And that's why they're integrating from 1 to t, not 0 to t, because you know the value at 1, so you don't care how it's changing from 0 to 1. And this was no calculator, so I guess you actually had to integrate by hand a little bit, but you can see they made it about the easiest integration you could do, as long as you're being careful. So the answer could be this, or anything equivalent to it. So why isn't this a number then? Why can't we say it's at position 5?
Because it's at time T, so.
Right. So generic time, so we can't narrow down to a specific point. Okay, anything else about C you'd like to ask? Okay, and then part D, 2 more points. Thank you. As t approaches infinity, which particle will be further from the origin? Give a reason for your answer. Okay. So there was 2 limits you should have done. You should have tried to plug infinity into the position of P. You want to know where he's at. And you should have taken the limit as t approaches infinity of the position of Q. If you do either one of those, you get a point. So if you got 6 is where particle P is, and 3 is where particle Q is, you get the first point. You didn't have to have both. But then in the end, you should be able to say that P is further away from the origin because 6 is further away than 3. 6 is further away from the origin than 3 is. So you have to have the answer and the reason. You had to say it was particle P that was further away and a reasoning. 6 is farther away from 0 than 3. Now, maybe less so on this one than the one we looked at the other day, but my challenge, and maybe it's just me, but when there's 2 particles like this, P and Q, it's very easy for me to forget, I'm working with Q, but I'm looking at P, I'm trying to find acceleration of P, but I used the velocity of Q, anything like that. So try to pick up some of the notation that they use. If they're talking about the position of Q, notice their little subscript Q. If they were talking about okay, I'm about to give up. If they were talking about the acceleration of Q, they use Q as a little subscript to remind themselves of that. So I think that's a good habit to pick up on. Okay, anything else y'all want to say about this one so we can move on? This stuff is super important. You will have multiple free response and multiple choice questions expecting you to know the difference between position, velocity, and acceleration. Multiple questions where you need to take derivatives, of course. That's about half of what we did this year. And things like, is something speeding up or slowing down? That was just derivative. Not forgetting to use the initial condition. Integrating to calculate how something changes. That stuff is going to come up pretty often. So, as always, I can't promise this type will be on the AP exam, but I've already shown you 2 examples of where it has recently. So there's a good chance this type could be there, and it would be one I would be prepared for if I was you. Okay, but to finish up, go ahead and add up out of 9 for the top of your page. Mentally think of a point or 2 that you are going to aim for next time. And then I'll pause for just a second to make sure you've got that done. And then we're gonna do one more practice FRQ today. It is the one that students talked about last year. It was the milk FRQ. So it's been a while, but I did have a milk FRQ meme. I just didn't show it to your class because this was an 8-day lesson before spring break. So anyway, this was the one that students talked about a lot last year. So I want you to try it, see how it goes. Okay. Anything before I start our timer? Okay. Last FRQ to practice today. Good luck.
Can I take your test Monday and third period?
Monday, 3rd, sure. Hey, Lucas, why don't you, hey, Luke, can you wait just a second?
Yeah.
That way I can grade it and give it back to you, and then that way if you miss something,
Okay, yeah,
you can,
for sure.
you have something to study before the test, because
Yeah.
it's gonna be on the test too. Pretty small. This was change of base, you got those switched. And then right here, your +1, you moved it over as a +1 too. It should be a negative.
Right.
But that was it, so. Take
Thanks.
that with you.
All right, thanks.
Stop. Okay, that was number 3, is that correct? FRQ 3? Okay, so it did have a lower average. I think it was like 2 something. Should say in the top right.
2.07.
2.07, okay. So again, part of me showing you these harder ones is not to try to freak you out, it's to try to give you some perspective. Knowing that the average was 2 should take off some of the pressure. Sorry, I'm waiting for this to sync over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly score this. Number 3. Okay, so the first question was a slope-filled question, a solution curve. So your point has to go through the point 0.05, and your curve should be similar to that. It doesn't have to be pixel for pixel the same thing, but just as general shape of went through this point, and it goes something like that in that direction. There's 1 point. I feel like everybody should be able to get that right. And that's already half of what you need to get to the average, or basically half. Okay, part B, use the tangent line to approximate m of 2. So you needed to come up with the tangent line. To come up with the tangent line, you had to find the slope, or the derivative at time 0. And so that was 35/4, or any arithmetic that's equal to it. Then you could use the slope with the point to make a tangent equation. Plug in 2 into the tangent equation to get the approximation. Approximation gave you your second point, 22.5 degrees Celsius. So that's fine if tangent line approximations is not something you're comfortable with, but I feel like this is about the 6th time I've shown you this in the last few weeks. So that should show you can get a couple points on your AP exam by making sure you're ready for tangent lines and tangent line approximations. In fact, I would have you do a circuit, but I think we already did that circuit last semester on tangent lines. So I'll double check, because if you haven't done it, I definitely want you to do it. All right, part C told you to use the second derivative to determine if it was an underestimate or overestimate. So you got 1 point if you got the second derivative correctly, which could be this or this. Those are the same thing. And then to answer the question, it was an overestimate. The reason it was an overestimate is because the second derivative was negative, also known as concave down. So if you think about a concave down, sometimes I think just making this sketch helps you remember the rules. A tangent line looks like this. So the tangent line point is guessing it to be up here when the point's really down here. That's why the tangent line approximation is over. It's going to be higher up if it's concave down. Whereas if it had been concave up, the tangent line would be guessing the point to be about here when it really should be there. So if it's concave up, it's an underestimate. So you had to have both parts for that. You had to say it was an overestimate, and you had to refer to it being concave down / second derivative was negative for that. Okay, and then, I don't know. Again, y'all are totally welcome to disagree with me, but I don't know how to have emphasized this more when we did chapter 6. The last part was a separation of variables. You had T's and capital M's. So even if nothing else made sense, these separation of variable questions. Is that it? Oh, there's another point down there. This is 4 points. This is the lowest point one I've ever seen. Usually they're like 5 or 6 points for this part. But if you recognized that you could do this and you separated the variables correctly, like this or this, if you put all the capital M stuff on one side and all the T stuff on one side, you got 1 point. If you did the antiderivatives correctly, this one had a chain rule step, so you do U substitution or be extra careful with it. This one should have been easy for you. You got a point. For the third point, you had to remember the constant of integration, which is C. So if you put plus C in your work, and you also had to use the initial condition. So if you plugged in 0.5 and solved for C, you had to do both of those. Your work needs to say plus C, and you need to plug in 0.5 and show that you solved for C. Yeah.
If I plugged in 0.5 and used plus C, but my antiderivative was wrong, would I get that point?
I think you would still get the third point, sorry.
Okay.
But, well, we'll see if they give anything else on the last part. No, they don't. Sometimes on these they'll say, if you didn't separate the variables, you don't get any points, stuff like that. So, but they didn't say that on this one. All right, and then of course, on separation of variables, I know solving for y equals, or in this case m equals, is by far the hardest part, but there was only 1 point tied to that. So to get that last point, you had to get that m, which was, I don't even remember, milk, the temperature of milk. It was temperature of milk? Okay, I didn't remember the context of the question. So yeah, it was a harder one, but you guys can certainly get more than 2 points. If not 2 points today or 3 points today, then by the time you get to the AP exam and you study this a little bit, again, simply noticing that the last question was a separation of variables. Oh, they even told you. They even told you it was separation of variables. So, I feel like you should have gotten at least a couple points on the very last part, even if nothing else. And the first point should have been a gimme too, I think. But okay, anything you want to ask about this one? Okay, so of course, in this, try to think of a point or two that you could get better than you did this time, but also, probably more importantly, when y'all take your AP exam, there's going to be 1 or 2 FRQs that you think are harder. This just happened to be the one last year. But just because you think it's harder, if you just give up on it, then yeah, you might be in trouble. But if you stick with it, squeeze out a couple points, you might accidentally be above average on it. So don't just assume because it seems harder and you don't know what to do right away that you should just quit on it. Okay, so again, if you would please number that as 104A. So when I ask for that, you'll know to give it to me. And then, again, we have a little bit less time. I knew Ms. Starr needed to come and talk to you guys. She's been saying that for a few weeks. I just didn't know it was going to be today. So you may not have time to look at any of your mock exam questions at the end, but I would like you to try to finish up the circuit we were looking at yesterday. And I have my answer key all worked out, so I'd be happy to help you wherever you're getting stuck. Just let me know. Julia, you're definitely not a tree hugger, are you?
I'm using it for my ACT.
How did your milk FRQ go? First point? How'd the milk one go? Good point, scale one.
Better than I've done on the other ones, so.
Or do y'all think you could do better on it next time?
Yeah. I think after the reading, I was like, this doesn't seem right at all. So I thought I was like, this way
Like, you guys know I like to practice stuff where we do it here all the time. But sometimes I'm like that and I'm like,
It's really hard for me not to look at the answers and like make sure I'm on the right track, you know, because I don't want to waste your time.
I know, I kept being
I'm guessing you got, are they ready?
I was also only in the first year graduate. Not as impressive.
How's it going?
First year. Because only the people who were very like were allowed to submit for that. Yeah. But no, this is the entire. There were only, there was that many submissions for that. And, that just showing me the actual good ones. So don't,
looked at it.
that,
My notes.
It looks really good.
it's still like,
You see what I was saying? Like, if you scroll down, like, they try to tell you, like, probably what your error was, and if you can click. Well done. So you're like, right, so that should help you.
and she went this person to expressive, which a lot more has to do with
I thought about saying something,
expressive.
but, okay, so then the most you could have gotten is like, what? 3?
I got one.
Well, you don't have to worry about that.
When I was in a sushi restaurant.
No, not tempura. Not shrimp salad.
Working time, sitting and chilling.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your mock exam?
Oh, I've taken one, but whatever.
Okay. You learned from all your mistakes?
I hope.
Okay, good. You're gonna be one of the 12 people that makes the perfect.
Okay, so.
Well, judging by my FAQs, probably not.
How does the milk one go?
Not too bad.
Yes, I know it's in
Oh, I missed E because I thought I had more T in the.
Or it's different, it's different.
I like X and Y.
I'm more kind of.
It's not like-
There is a
Going okay? You were gone yesterday.
Yes.
Do you remember those? Sometime near the beginning of the year. All of us.
I worked on it.
Were you allowed to use a calculator?
No.
Were you allowed to use a calculator on this?
Oliver, you have like almost 10 zeros in a row in the grade book.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, it's
Turn them in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you'll need to tell me which ones.
Yeah, no, that does.
Because I don't know which ones to look back at. Number one, and number two, have you done everything else? I don't think you've done the mock exam FRQs yet. You got the circuit done from yesterday? Yeah? Okay. I turned in 127 and, okay, good. But you still got stuff that you can do.
Well, they have like a.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't give you too much warning here, but you guys have about 3 minutes till you're dismissed. So, once again, it's my fault you didn't get enough class time for everybody to finish the circuit. You do not have to do the circuit for homework at this point. The only reason I'm saying it's not your homework is because you have the 4 free response, no calculator mock exam on AP Classroom to do for homework. So, if you didn't do any of that last night, that's fine, but you need to make sure that you do that by Tuesday, please. So when I look at this looks like g of x times f of x to me. So I would start with that. Then this whole thing is telling you to take the derivative. So do that just in general terms, but you're going to have to do product rule. And then it looks like they plugged in 2, and then all of those values are going to come Did you guys enjoy these testing days? Well, I am personally glad that they're over, because I had to give all 3 of them. Made for some long days.